guys. Alright, live stream time. Thanks for everyone who's tuning in and watching this later. We had some technical difficulties and some prep stuff didn't happen on time on my end, so gotta keep up with the Mexican traditions. If you ain't 5 minutes late, you're early. Hello, everybody. So, trying out something new, some background music from the Chaminger playlist. Want to see if it's too loud or if it's too quiet. So, as we are streaming, please let me know. So, for all those people that are going to be watching this recording live after this, appreciate your patience while we was doing a setup. Again, this is always a learning journey, constant improvement. Got to stay true to the Challenger themes, you guys know. So, basically, what's going to happen every Friday at 4 p.m. Mountain, 3 p.m. Pacific, 6 p.m. Eastern is that we're going to be doing a happy hour. And during this happy hour, essentially what happens is that I'm looking to share stories that are very insane and personal to me, but also interact with you guys in a much more informal environment. And if you guys want to ask some questions and hear my hashtag no filter opinion on it, this is the opportunity to do so. But really, I want to use this opportunity to share a lot of my sales war stories, things that people never really realized went down back in the day. Like, there's so much that goes down in businesses and companies, and I'm not going to share anything that's, proprietary or that they wouldn't want me to share, but my own personal experiences that helped me grow and helped me learn a lot. Social skills, all those things of that nature. And of course, with a good drink in hand. So, again, for everyone who's just tuning in, thanks so much. Please leave a comment, say hi, so I know who all is watching from all the different platforms, because since we do stream on various platforms, sometimes it's hard to know who's already here and who's not. But again, this time we're doing something a little different. We have some music in the background from some of the Chaminger songs. I don't know if you guys can even hear it, or if it's too quiet or it's too loud. Please let me know. Looking for some feedback there, but appreciate you guys. Yo, what up, man? It's Kramer. How you doing, dude? You better be drinking, man. That's really cool. So, just some brief story. Kramer's actually a guy that I met through online gaming and online communities back in the day, and it's just really cool to be able to, keep up, like what's the word? Reconnect almost in a way, years down the road, and that's something that I really think is pretty badass. So, cheers, my man. Yo, how you doing? How's the situation? I know in the past you had attempted streaming once or twice or something like that. Any advice? Anything that worked for you? I'm trying to do it twice a week right now, just because it's it's time consuming, and until you have an audience built up, but you got to start from somewhere. So for anyone else that is tuning in or watching, Today I'm drinking some martinis, gin martini. Just recently got back from Mexico, Cancun, and had a lot. It was an all inclusive, so obviously there was a lot of alcohol involved. But one of the drinks that I really hadn't had in a while was gin martinis, and just completely got hooked again. And every so often, I'll definitely have one. Try not to have it a lot, but on an occasion like this, absolutely. Yeah, I can see that. Well, I appreciate it, man. Keep schedule. That's the plan. That's the plan. Lots of talking to yourself. I'm good at that. I'm good at that. It paid off from the good old days. Talking to people on Ventrilo and Mumble and all those other platforms. So all that experience is paying off. Except this time it's actually on cam. But once we have a few more viewers tuning in, we'll start sharing some of these stories that I promised. And a lot of them are pretty crazy. So you guys definitely need to look forward to it. But anything for a sale, like that is, I guess, kind of like the mantra that I lived by for a while when I was doing my timeshare sales marketing job. And I feel like most random people believe that that's what sales is for everyone. And that's not the case. Like, you can be a sales guy and not literally stoop down to doing whatever, just to get a sale. So, let me just remind some people that we were live a little later. So, Kramer, what's oh, guess you got to be a guest, man. Yeah, seriously, like I can share all my stories, and that's why I'm doing with my brother. I'm doing it with Stephanie, and I'm going to be starting this other segment where it's just purely inviting guests on and just hearing their story. But one of the draws that I want to do down the road for this live stream is having people join as well, because I feel like it doesn't have to be anything formal. It's not going to be an hour conversation that's going to be edited and post produced. It's just going to be in the moment and be like, hey, what's up? What's going on? Oh, dude, that's sweet. What do you guys talk about? Yeah. Well, what's interesting is that I've been using a certain remote software. It's called Riverside. So basically, it's like a Zoom to have people record, so they don't have to necessarily fly in person, just because COVID and all that. But there's something about doing something in person that is just completely different than over the computer and over the phone. See, this is cool though. Like, this is proof, guys, why everyone has to explore things like this, because being able to interact with people, reconnect, and I mean, I almost just want to invite you on. The Chaminger experience. Oh man. Um, economic development mostly. So go ahead. Thank you. Um, mostly how to build professional relationships with government institutions. So are you are you kind of like teaching people the best way to interact and network with these professionals, or is it more so that you are educating people on what economic development is and the pros and cons and all that stuff? It's pretty cool though. Oh, you heard about it? Why am I not surprised? People who were into tech back in the day, of course they're gonna still be in it. Yo, by the way, curious to hear, what are your opinions on Diablo 2 remake? Since I know you were like the king of that. Yeah, I mean, all I know is when, um, okay, go. When the government, or when I was doing medical sales, and obviously you're selling to entities of all styles. So doctors' offices, universities, uh, nonprofits, rural health clinics, like all. So some of them are obviously like subsidized in a way by the government. So there's so many different rules, and the first time I had to deal with procurement and all that goes into getting something approved and that contract process, and it's like, oh my. And everyone is just like so like walking on eggshells, and no one wants to commit to a decision, and it's like, guys, let's just cut the bullshit. Let's just have a real conversation. We both want to get this done. I completely get it. I respect it. Dark times. Hilarious. But it goes to show you that everyone gets older, everyone matures, everyone changes over time. I like it though, man. Respect. Good for you. I was selling electronic health records. So the the piece that you actually that the doctor's offices use to track all the medical records, do their billing, schedule patients, do the reminders, that whole spiel of devices and functionality. You can pass it. Thanks. So it really was super interesting, but like working with certain universities and stuff like that and those entities, it's just the request for proposals and all those things. Like, oh my goodness, don't miss it. To be honest, I'm just like, hey, can we just sit down over a glass of martini and actually have a conversation? Yup, HIPAA. That's a word I haven't heard in a while. I still have nightmares about the Health Information Protection Act. I remember when I was learning about it, and they like try to scare you. I mean, obviously it's good practice, but they're like, you can't even have your laptop unlocked at home. What if someone else sees something? I'm like, oh geez, yeah. Oh, dude, sweet. I did not know that. That's really cool, man. Respect. It's a crazy industry, and like because I grew up so much in like in the international field, I had to learn so much about how it works in the U.S. I'm like, oh my, there's just so much, and that's when I found a newfound um disdain is the word I'm going to use for insurance companies. Like they are, yep, you know, you know. That's really cool though. You got to be the you got to be the chief the COO, the chief operation officer of like some kind of hospital or something. Do you always want to be in healthcare? And by the way, for anyone who's just tuning in, just having a conversation with my man John Kramer, as a guy that I literally used to game with back in the day, and that's just crazy that we could reconnect over something like this. And obviously, like, there's a lot that has changed in both of our lives, and I mean, it's just a cool opportunity that this setup can enable those opportunities. So I hope you guys grab a drink, relax. It's Friday. If you don't like alcohol for some reason, or you need to stay away from it because it's too dangerous, respect. But we're really just chatting, and I invite anyone who's just joining to comment or message me, and we want this to be free flowing and very conversational. And as this grows, start inviting people on and just literally having a chat. So if you guys are out there, say hi. We don't bite, we swear. So what made you get into healthcare, Kramer? Hey, Stephanie. I honestly like this one better than the one at the resort. Thank you. Respect, man. I know that's a pretty big life-changing situation. So you moved? You're in California now? Everyone's changing their lives. Got it. Oh man. I mean, that is where the money is, and there's a lot of opportunities there. I mean, the healthcare industry is crazy. That's why. I mean, just getting into like some of this like podcasts and streaming stuff, and you see some of the software that's out there. And you see how advanced and like clean user interfaces and features that they have. And then I just remember like some of the products that not only that I sold, but other our competitors had, and all these things. And you're like, oh my goodness, they are still like operating like if it was early 2000s or like the 1990s. But because no one really like completely blew anyone else away, they could get away with it. And it's just crazy the prices that they charge. Like something that I can pay $200 a year for is probably more advanced than something that clients are paying a lot more. And that's just super fascinating to me to see. Sweet. Dude, gaming PCs let you do anything because they're so good. I just I had to get away from the gaming PC world. It was just too time consuming, very addicting, very dangerous. Dude, yeah, I mean, it is crazy everything that you have now. I mean, it's great for people that I mean, I have my organizational strategy, my organizational way, but I feel like there just comes a point where having all these other things that automate things for you, track things for you, the fact that I can sorry if no one knew this, but the fact that I can know if like people open emails or not, and like see where they like moved their mouse and they clicked on things like, oh, that marketing approach wasn't good, and clearly this email just didn't resonate, and it's just insane like what technology has done to this world. But I love it. I love it. Like I'm all for the technology. Really? That's actually insane. That's actually kind of cool. You still keep in touch? Oh my God, Leon. Dude, I kind of went on like a. Well, I mean, obviously that's part of what I'm sharing now, but like this massive self improvement journey. It's just, I feel like, I mean, I definitely didn't mean to talk about it on this episode, but it's something that I was sharing with my brother on one of the podcast episodes. But like being able to talk on like Discord and Ventrilo and like these voice platforms in the past with people like random strangers around the world anywhere was it's crazy. Like I mean, I'm starting to get into Clubhouse and set it up. Next time when I do these live streams, I'm also going to be using Clubhouse. But it's just crazy to think that audio is picking up so much right now. I mean, I get it. Like it's just super easy with like Bluetooth headsets, and you can just like have like a YouTube video on with the audio playing while you're cooking or something. But I remember using that stuff like 15, 10 years ago, you know? And the fact that it's getting so popular today and it's like worth so much is like, whoa, that's crazy to think, you know? But it really was just so fascinating that because I was always like moving and never had a solid friend group to be able to connect with people online from all around the world, like literally like some people from Europe, Australia, mostly the US, was just really cool. I mean, there were a lot of weirdos, but there were a lot of awesome people too. Oh shit, that's really cool. You got to send me the link sometime. I'll definitely join in and be like, "Hey, what's up, guys?" And I'm gonna get crucified, but it's gonna be a lot of fun. Oh shit, really? What up, Alejandro? Thanks for tuning in. Appreciate you. That's when you got to sneak in one of those. What do they call it? Um, Airport shooter thingies. I always forget their names, but just take it to work and go. Phew. And now he's like, "No, I'm leaving the stream. I'm not associated with this. I don't drink at the job." Thanks for tuning in, man, and the support. I appreciate you. Legit. So this is a crazy part that I like. I feel like not a lot of people know, but like being able to interact in that stuff, like in your free time, and get people to like listen to you that you've never met face to face, and you have to convince them that hey, look, listen to what I'm saying. It's worthwhile, and you're doing that every day, like because so many people rely on like body language and appearance and stuff like that to earn credibility. Being able to do that exclusively with your voice is extremely powerful. I mean, yep, 100% agree with you. It was crazy. It was such a good experience meeting so many random people from all around the world. Oh, the playlist finished. By the way, we're for people who actually tuned in. What was the music situation like? Could you actually hear it? Was it loud? Was it quiet? I always feel like it's just hard to say if you guys even heard it. I might need another martini soon. You're drinking too fast. One drink an hour. Got it. Let's see.
I feel like it would be picked up. It would have to go through the mic in order for them to hear it.
How's that? Is that still really quiet? I just bumped up the volume all the way. But as you can see, like this is just a learning process. But one of the things that I was looking up right before doing this was the copyright situation, because I know that I wasn't sure about Facebook and YouTube, but I know Twitch. And I'm not haven't really been promoting Twitch, but if you like play like an Ariana Grande or Justin Bieber song, like they like mute the clip. So like if people started watching this recording tomorrow, there would be no audio. But because these are the Chaminger songs that we got through our own methods, they actually won't. Yup, Pawn 5. Sweet, man. Appreciate you tuning in. Appreciate you chatting. It was cool catching up. Take it easy. Well, that was definitely a surprise, a pleasant surprise. It was really cool to be able to chat with someone that I literally haven't talked to in forever. And at the end of the day, I think a lot of people equate like not talking to someone with almost like disdain, dislike. I disagree. I think you can catch someone tomorrow that you haven't and find them like at the supermarket and you haven't talked to them in 10 years. And you should be able to catch right up. And if not, the question is who's holding a grudge and why? So let's transition to one of my things that I wanted to talk about, one of the stories, and it's like some tips about how you can literally talk to anyone. And so many people like put this like list of items that need to be done before they can like call someone a friend. If we were friends 10 years ago, obviously we are completely different people today, but I'm going to treat you like we're still a friend. When you treat someone like they're still a friend, they're going to have this internal dialogue with themselves like, wait, are we actually friends? Like, should I be interacting with this person differently? That's when things get interesting. Because all of a sudden, like, you're not only doing small talk. Like, why can't you just straight get into like, hey man, like, how's life? And then they stay good. And then you start asking actually a real question. Like, are you still working on this? Are you doing this? So many people then would go into weather or etc. Cut that crap. Be interested in the person. Actually want to know what is going on in their life. And ask questions about it. Like literally, you want to be able to talk to anyone? Be genuinely interested in the other person. I mean, then you have the sales guys that only are doing it because they want something in return. Well, then you're not really interested in them, are you? You're just using them. But if you're doing it for the right reason, it's so easy to be able to have a conversation to anyone. Like, if I haven't, like, I just had a conversation with John Kramer, who I've literally not talked to in probably like 9 years. Less, actually, but it feels like 9 years, but like 6 or 7. And we just had a pretty good conversation. And that is just because I'm actually genuinely curious about what is going on and what has happened and everything that went down. And it's not hard, guys, if you actually care. But too many people are so worried about appearances and the rules of society, and rules are meant to be broken. That's the martini talking, by the way. Please don't clip that. So, let's continue and let's talk about a story that I am quite passionate about, actually. And it's the topic of anything for a sale. So, what do I mean by anything for sale? Do anything for sale. When I was working in the timeshare industry, it was a marketing / sales job. And it was an opportunity to just to paint people the picture so that if they don't, I've never seen it before. Essentially, the way it works is you would go to a major touristic location or an event like a beer festival, a home show, a golf show, the Space Needle in Seattle, and there would be a booth there, and you were in charge of stopping random people that were already there for a purpose, normally to like visit whatever tourist attraction existed over there. And your responsibility was to convince these people to attend a timeshare presentation in exchange for whatever you were offering. So let's be real. Most people are on vacation. Their time is limited. So do they really want to sit through a timeshare presentation? A lot of times when people travel, the people who travel are a little more well off. The people who earn more money tend to value time more because they know how valuable their time is. So it gets harder and harder and harder to stop people. So what do? You do anything for sale with a caveat. I remember I was working at a wedding festival or a wedding show, I guess is what they called it, in Washington, Tacoma, Washington. And basically, you know, people don't really go to those to find a timeshare. Let's be real. Like, they go to that to find a dress, to find their cupcakes, to find their cake, to find their flowers, to find their DJ, to find like all these random things. I'm like, oh my God, the wedding industry is insane. But what actually ends up happening is there's vendors as well. And this this event had a certain quota. Anyone who's working in sales understands quota, the concept of quota. So what ends up happening is that the I was kind of like a supervisor at this time at this job, and my bosses had very high expectations of me. So they're like, we need to bring in this amount of sales from this event to recoup our money and make profit. Okay. First day, literally the expected attendance was nowhere near what the promoters said it was going to be. So let's say they expected 1,000 people to show up. Only about 50 to 75 people showed up. So you're literally at this event, and that's throughout the entire day, like 8 hours. Only 50 to 75 people show up. So you have 50, 75 opportunities to pitch, most likely the wife or the soon to be wife, to get a timeshare. But what is she going to say? My husband's not there. I'm not going to end up trying to sign up for a vacation club while going to one of these events. So it was very challenging. But I'm a guy that's not going to just not make quota. So I'm talking to vendors and like starting to, warm them up to the idea of, hey, you're a vendor. Like, you've sat through this bullshit as well, that we have no audience here. They can relate. But they still weren't sold because, again, the husband wasn't there or something like that. So you give them what they want. And what did they want? They wanted to be able to use. I was talking to them and figured out what they wanted. They had a new Facebook page, and they wanted to be able to post a picture of me using their product. What was their product? They were Lip Sense, this lipstick company that apparently makes the most waterproof, that doesn't rub off lipstick in existence. And they wanted me to put on this lipstick, take a picture, and use it for their Facebook like profile, banner, and a post. So what did I do? I told them, absolutely, but you guys not only have to listen, I'll give you the best deal, but you're going to have to do it. They're like, we'll see, but we'll listen and we'll most likely do it. I'm like, fine. So I put on Lip Sense lipstick, and they took a picture of it and they posted on their profiles and their social media and all this stuff. But I actually got 2 sales out of that. I convinced both of them. So, that's what I mean by anything for a sale. Like, you have to get creative. You have to find a way that works with your interests, your passions.
Don't worry, guys. I'm gonna find that photo somewhere for
Oh no. Well, I think what makes that story even more interesting is the fact that I wasn't done working after that event. So because I was pretty much the top sales guy, they always wanted me to be present at every major event. So that was like from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. And then we also had a contract with the Seattle Sounders at a soccer stadium. So what that meant was I had to go from this other city in Washington all the way to downtown to the soccer stadium, and we set up a booth there, and I would now sell and market to the people that would go to the soccer game. Remember, I had this lipstick on that doesn't actually come off. I really did ask them to clean it. And it's funny, like I didn't care that I necessarily had it on, but the problem is that, let's be real, anyone who has gone to soccer games, football games, basketball games, you know the demographic. You know the demographic. It's salute. That's all I will say. So what ends up happening is, like, there's literally no way that I want to be selling a already hard to sell product or service to a drunker, more like frat bro type of crowd with lipstick on. Like that's just not something I want to do. But yeah, let's just say it went okay. I after they cleaned it off, but everyone was taking pictures of me, like my coworkers, and everyone was sharing it. Like the amount of text that I got was insane. But I did it for the sale, and I still had success at the sports event. But I think the reason why is because I just owned it, you know. And I just want to point it out to people. It's like it doesn't matter, you know, that it was something weird. I set my mind to accomplish a goal, and I did it. So there you have it. Hey sis, appreciate it. Thanks for the comment. Are you? Did you hear the story? If so, please forget that. That never happened. Well, for anyone who tuned in, I would appreciate or love to hear like what are you guys' thoughts on that piece? Have have you ever done something where it's like, you know what? No matter what, I'm gonna accomplish this. And if so, what was it? I think there's something to be said about that. Like, did you were you like, I'm going to complete graduate school, and no matter the challenges that I face, I will overcome each one. Or did you give up? And if so, why? Well, while you guys type up the comment, I'm going to share another story that I think is very, very valuable. And this one, this one is interesting because I think most people would never do this, but most people couldn't understand why I did what I did, and that's kind of like my theme. Why do I need to live everyone else's way or life? So after I turned down the timeshare job, and I did work some other random gig here and there, um, but I knew how good I was. I knew I was talented. I knew I could convince people to view things from my perspective, from my way. So I wasn't satisfied with just taking any random job. And what is interesting is I worked with a lot of recruiters, and I told them that, you know, I had made X amount of money in my previous job and I expected nothing less. And this is why, like, again, apologies if you are a recruiter, nothing against you, but recruiters almost exclusively just try to get rid of the jobs that they just haven't found yet. And I mean, it makes sense. It's like if you had excess supply of a product, you don't want it just to rot in storage. You want to get rid of it. You make a promotion for it. You do a sale. You do a discount. I mean, supermarkets do it all the time. So in this case, we had they always offered me all these startup positions that I'm like, guys, like it's not my first job. Like, are you listening to me? So I had a lot of weird positions offered to me, but I also just applied to a lot of high end positions because I knew my talent, I knew my skill. And at the end of the day, sales is a game of confidence, speaking ability, and connection ability, relationship building. And I knew I could do it. So I was applying for, like the Amazons, the Facebooks, the Microsofts, the Zillows, all those, like, we're talking like the top tier companies. And I've only had pretty much 3 years, 2.5 or so of sales experience. And, on the ad, they would say you need at least minimum 10. But I was getting interviews. So shout out, first of all, to everyone who doesn't apply because they don't meet the standards or the requirements. Just do it. If you're good and you can back up what's in your resume in the interview, they don't care. There were a few that I definitely wanted, that I made it far along the process, but a lot of those managers and VPs that would interview me, like I'd make it to the last stage and they didn't vibe with me. Like, not everyone will connect with me and understand my approach and my perspective. So sometimes I got turned down, and that sucks. Like you're excited, for example, to work at Zillow. Like they were located right, like they were 5 minutes walking distance from my apartment at that time in downtown Seattle. I'm like, yes, please. And making a salary that was close to what I was making with a lot of commission in my previous job. I'm like, that's what I'm talking about. And commission still, but it didn't happen. So obviously those are like blows to your ego and your confidence. But you just pick yourself back up. But then there was also so many other jobs that like I was interviewing for, and I'm like, this is horrible. Like you start knowing what's good, what's bad, what you should be looking out for. I literally turned down probably like 20 to 25 jobs. Like that they were like, we want you, 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 we want you. And by the way, for about 18 of those 25, I was unemployed. I'll repeat that one again. I turned down approximately 18 jobs while being unemployed. I think a lot of people are so desperate to find a job that they sacrifice their standards and their quality. And this goes for a lot of things in life, not just jobs. But knowing your worth, knowing your value is really the lesson that I wanted to share here. Is like, I knew I was better than that. It's just because someone else couldn't see it. I'm like, I'll go somewhere else. Obviously, what was a big boost was that my cousin Adrian was worked for a medical device company, and we had the opportunity to. He was like, "There's a position open, so you could skip a lot of the bullshit at the beginning and just go into the interviews." And I got really close. And I lost the job to someone who had been doing other medical device sales for a similar company already for like 10 years. And his total like sales experience was like 20. So they knew that I was an investment and they chose to play it safe. And obviously that's frustrating, but I'm like, if you can go and pretty much make it to the point where that interviewee or that interviewer tells me, hey, you're the best interviewer that I've had like ever, that you're good. It's just you have to keep going. Oh my, sorry, I just got a comment. What are some strategies people can use to pick themselves up if they get rejected? What did you do? Well, I will finish telling the story momentarily after I answer this question. But how can you pick yourself up when you get rejected? Well, sales is an industry where you basically just get rejected. So I had to learn this very quickly. First of all, you can't take it personally. You can't take it personally because at the end of the day, when you get good at social skills, you can be good at controlling the conversation so that people are listening and hearing what you want them to hear. But at the end of the day, the strategy to picking yourself up, sorry, I definitely got sidetracked. Strategy picking yourself up is simply viewing failure or rejection as a lesson. So, what do I mean by that? Let's say you were sprinting the 100-meter dash and you got third. You thought you were the best and you got third. You're like, oh my. Well, you lost. So you have two options. You either pout and cry about it, or you say, hey, why did I lose? Like, could I have trained more? Did I train enough? What did those other two people do? You could literally even go up to them like, well, what's your training like? Congratulations. Get to know them, get to see that. What if they literally woke up every single day at 5 a.m. and trained until 10 p.m. and you've only did 1 hour of training a day? Really, you expect to win against someone who trains 12 hours a day and you train one? Like, you start realizing very quickly that there are things that you could have learned. So now you say, okay, well, what could I have done differently? What did I learn? And there's always something positive to take about every single rejection. So in this case, for me, like when I was rejected at that medical device sales company, and I was like pretty much last interview, ready to go, and I would have been set. I mean, I first of all, I made it to the last stage. Second of all, I got complimented at my interviewing skills. Like those are lessons. I'm like, okay, so I'm good at interview, I'm good at this, but I might need some extra experience with the lesson. But I'm like, you got to remember the good stuff too. Like, hey, just because I didn't get the job doesn't mean I suck. It just means that I need to do a little more. But I feel like a lot of people are like, well, it's over. I didn't get that. There's no other chance. Like, there's thousands of companies, there's thousands of things that you can do, right? Once you start viewing every mistake or every single thing that went wrong as, oh, well, what can I do differently? It changes things. I mean, that's why, shout out to anyone who plays like games or board games or anything that where it's a little more challenging. Like if you guys know, like I enjoy a series called Dark Souls that's kind of known for its more challenging difficulty. It's not the hardest thing in the world, but the point is that there's a lot of repetition and there's a lot of expected failure. Like you're gonna probably die in that game. So what happens is when you do that, you have to restart the whole level. Okay, well, now this time you know that 10 minutes into the level, this random fire is going to pop up and you need to avoid it. And you're not going to die to the same thing again. And that's really how I view it. Or almost view it as like experience. Every time you do something, you get a point of experience. And once you get to 10 points, you master it. So why do you expect to be the master at the 1 or 2 or 3 point mark? Get to the 10 points and then talk. Before that, if you made it, you probably got lucky, but that's awesome. But you got to master it first. And that's how I view it. And I think so many people like are worse. Like, I mean, I just think in sales, like my previous jobs, people are like, how did you get so good so fast and over time? I'm like, because I actually was doing something about it. I actually was learning from my mistakes. I was learning from my failures. I was viewing them as, okay, that means I have to improve. What can I change next time? What can I change next time? I would literally sometimes ask my clients, I'm like, okay, well, you didn't do it. Why not? Like, I'm super into self improvement. What can I do better next time? They're like, oh, well, you guys came and promised us that you were going to help our business and give us consultation. And then all of a sudden we wanted it. And now you're like, oh, wait, but you have to pay for it. I'm like, okay. So we have to be better about phrasing our intentions, et cetera, et cetera. I don't want to get too into the weeds, but that would be my advice to your question. What do you think? She's like, please never answer another one of my questions again. But to finish the story about, turning down 20 jobs, it's just knowing that your worth and your value. Like there's so many people that are still working at their same job 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, whatever years later. And I'm like, have you not improved? Have you not changed your personal life? Have you not changed like your knowledge? Were you reading books, watching videos, stuff like that? Why are you still doing the exact same job? If you haven't got a promotion, why not? Probably because your employer doesn't want to spend more money on you because they're stingy. I'm like, why would you ever promote? Like, I mean, now that I'm doing this project of mine and this passion, it's if I had an employee working under me that was editing like the episodes of the podcast and they'd been doing it for 2 years and they are literally amazing now, like they could edit a full episode in 10 minutes. And initially when I hired him, it took them 5 days, but I'm still paying them the exact same thing. Like, maybe just because I consider myself a good person. I'm like, hey man, you deserve this and I want to keep you. But you know how many employers would never give that person a raise because guess what? They still think that the only job that they can do is that job. But they started this job when they were had the skill set to be able to edit in 5 days. Now they have the skill set to edit in, what did I say? I don't even remember, 10, 20 minutes. So once you realize that, like, once you learn to view your self-worth, self-value, it doesn't matter if you get rejected. It doesn't matter if you fail. It doesn't matter because you still know deep down where you're at. And that's part of the Chaminger message. It's like getting that self-esteem, that confidence to that point where you can just, like, I took a punch, whatever, next. I mean, and that's why also after turning down all these jobs, I finally had the opportunity to talk to someone that worked for a medical software company. And then, I had an amazing interview with someone that literally basically, I mean, it was a miracle. They had the exact same background as me, Mexican, German, grandma from Oaxaca, went to University of Washington. And he basically saw me as, you know, when he was younger, he viewed me as where he was, 10, 15 years ago. So 2 minutes into the first interview, he's like, hey, you're moving on to the next step. I want you. Like, literally, we're talking about like a top prestigious job. And like 2 minutes in an interview, you're already like, yeah, you already closed the deal. And I thought I had that job. It's medical sales, great opportunity, lots of money. And it was for a position right where I lived in Washington. And then right when I get it, my soon-to-be boss calls me and is like, hey, I want you. We need you. But we promoted someone internally just because of politics for the Washington territory. You would have to move to Colorado and cover Kansas, Nebraska, and Colorado. And at this point, like, if you guys know me, I've moved a lot growing up, so move doesn't scare me. But still, it's like I finally kind of settled my roots, had a certain standard of things, and then it's like, oh hey, you are about to uproot your life again. Are you want to do this? Like, you're gonna leave everything behind, all your friends, your contact, everything. You're gonna have to learn a new town. And it's like, hey, he's like, you have 3 days to think about it. And I'm like, no, I'm good. I know I want to do it. 30 seconds. Took me 30 seconds. And in those 30 seconds, I was like, is there anything where I live right now that I absolutely need to function? Like person, location, object, anything. The answer is no. And that's not an offense to anyone there. I mean, literally some of the best friendships and people that I've met were from Washington State to this day. But it was like, no, I mean, I know how the impact that this can have in my life. So you take that chance. And I feel like that's where setting yourself up for success is the key, and like not being bound by just the same things that you've always known. Like, why can't you take that risk? Why can't you do that? Literally doing that, moving to Colorado, restarting my life, figuring things out. I mean, it sucked for a while. Having to like build up a friend group and like finding the wrong people and getting with the wrong crowd. But you start taking a chance, you start doing that. So that's literally basically the story of how I ended up moving to Colorado. It took me 30 seconds to decide to leave Washington, where I had lived the longest at any point, like 8 or 9 years straight. So they finished high school and did college and worked my my first passion sales job there. So, yo, what up, Tamer? My man, Tamer Swellum. How you doing, dude? I know you don't drink, but drink some like a mocktail or something, some apple juice. we'll call it.
Apple juice.
We'll call it tequila. Do we have a little more? Oh man. Respect, dude. How are things going? I love that you say that, Riva. Yo, quick shout out to my man Tamer. So we went to high school together, and this guy, he respect to you. You always just were so dedicated to the cause. I feel like I was always trying to find like the ways to do the least amount of work possible to get things done. And this guy just always was doing putting in the work, putting in the effort, and you gotta respect that. And there was definitely some lots of crazy moments back in the high school days, but I just always remember the what was it the was it the IGN party down in downtown Seattle that we went with what was his name? You know what I'm talking about, right? Yeah, Alejandro. So we're visiting Colorado after having lived in Littleton so many years prior when we were younger. What was that like for you? You know, um, it was interesting. It was very interesting because I know I talk a lot about this on my vlogs and the podcast episodes, but one of the things that really blew my mind was we had lived, for people who don't know, we had lived in Colorado when I was 7 to 11, somewhere around there, like that 6 to 10, sometime during that point. It was during Columbine as well, so we lived like a mile away from Columbine High School. So there was a lot that happened, but it was my family had probably one of the best experiences of our like my childhood living in Colorado. Like we really bonded, we were close, we had a great time together. But you also were there as a kid, so it's different. You're in school, like you're not going out. If you did go somewhere, it was with your parents. It was very different going back because that's what you think about. So I pretty much had zero expectations going in, but I still, in the back of my mind, always knew that that's what we were experiencing. So we ended up going to Colorado, or I ended up going to Colorado, and what really surprised me was I felt like obviously Colorado was a lot smaller at that time. It got really big. It really got almost like mainstream. It almost got to flavor of the month in a way. Like everyone wanted to be here. Everyone, like, the secret was out. And a lot of the people that I was meeting, I feel bad sometimes. Like, I always like raising on Colorado people, but the people that I was meeting were basically this skeleton, like this stereotype, this living, breathing, walking stereotype. And it's just disappointing. It was disappointing that most, because I was used to Washington, which has a lot of foreigners. And I tend to be a little more attracted to like friendships and relationships with people who have more like foreign experience, right? So people that their mind is a little less narrow, they've experienced more things just because they can relate to that. And it really was surprising that here everyone is basically okay. Thank you. They wanted to go hiking, which I'm not the biggest fan of. I like it when I'm on vacation. I don't like it necessarily when I'm just, there's nothing wrong with it, But when I'm just like living at home, I'm like, thank you. I don't want to just go hiking all the time. It's just not my thing, which is fine. But everyone has their own thing. They wanted to drink craft brews at like the local breweries. They wanted to get a Subaru to drive up to the mountains to go skiing, and they wanted to have their golden retriever. And I was really trying hard at the beginning when I first moved here to befriend new people. And I would say 3 to 4 out of 5 people that I would meet would have 4 out of 5 of those things that I just mentioned. And I'm like, guys, there's literally no way. Like, you're telling me all of you guys grew up the exact same way that you're into the exact same things? Like, unless you all moved here for those things, I feel like something's off. And like everyone then that was like I added to social media that I met here were just posting their cardboard signs that said, "Hey, I just hiked a 14er." And I'm like, what is happening? Like, is this literally that all that Colorado is? Like, people only want to do that? It was just really disappointing. And then when I would actually like hang out with these people and like I had real conversations with them one on one, like let's say a friend hosted a party and I had that, I'm like, oh yeah, there's like 9 million other things about them. But they presented like it was crazy to me. Like I would say Colorado is probably one of the most insecure states that I've ever seen in my life. I mean, I'm sure California and LA are more, but it blew my mind the like interacting with Colorado people. Like they are so worried about fitting in more than anywhere else that I've lived in my 6 countries growing up. So that's my story, Alejandro. I think it's a beautiful state. There's definitely some cool people. There's a lot of food. There's a lot of opportunities. Like the mountains are amazing when you go, but I gotta say the quality of people and their confidence to be who they are was a little disappointing. Oh, it was. Oh yeah, it was the Tomb Raider party. That was good times, man. That was good times. Oh my goodness. Yep, constant. I feel that I didn't want much sleep, but I did get experience starting from zero, like you did when I moved to Egypt for a year. In schools, did you have to adapt to a lot of the norms of school there, and how did you do without losing who you are, dude? Well, first of all, respect. Um, it's it's never easy to move to different countries because I'm sure as you can relate, going back to Egypt, every country is just so different. Like it's not even fair to compare. And starting from zero is not necessarily the thing that I necessarily want to brag about, but you moved there for a year and I'm sure you I'm sure it humbled you. I'm sure you changed your perspective on some things. And I think that's something that you have to hold on to. But your question to answer that now is do you have to adapt a lot to the norms of school there and how did you do it without losing who you are? You know, I wish I could tell you that I was like how I am now, but I wasn't, man. Like you do lose who you are a little bit, especially when you're at the school because I wish that my parents had already lived through this and they knew that hey, this is what you should be aware of, Fabian, Alejandro, etc. Like do this and do this. But they were living it for the first time with us. We were kids moving to a new country. Like all of a sudden you go to Jamaica, you go to Mexico, you go to Ecuador. Like how do you grow up and interact there? So they didn't have the answer either because they were figuring it out themselves. So the problem is you're a kid and there's already like this almost desire to fit in, right? Like that's just what kids naturally want to do. It's just human nature. Like you want to be part of a tribe, you want to be part of a community. What really prevented us, I'm going to talk for myself because I don't know if my brother and sister agree, was family, man. Like being able to go back home and being so tight knit and like we were who we were, and like there was no judging going on at home. There was no insecurity between the family. Like we could be who we were. Like my parents let that happen. My brother and sister let that happen. Like no, I wasn't like hating on my brother or sister for liking X, Y thing. They weren't doing that to me, you know? And when you are free to be who you really are at home, you can keep your identity. It was basically like, hey, when we go to the school, it's like, okay, you're kind of just quiet, you're listening, you're just trying to figure out what is happening. And, you're the alien. You're literally like the UFO dropped you off in this new country, and everyone's like, "Who are you? What are you?" I mean, I just think back to Ecuador, where everyone just asked me like, "Hey, man, which team are you into? Like soccer team?" And like I'm talking about German teams and like stuff like that, and they're like, "What? Who? What? Where?" Like it just they didn't even know about that stuff, and then you're just like, "Oh, okay." And I remember at that period of time, just basically saying that I was into one of the teams, the local teams that I just heard about, but it was just kind of like almost to shut them up because I really had nothing else to say. So it was very challenging, but I would credit the home life and being able to be so close to your family was the key. And I know that you were pretty close to your family and your sister, so I'm sure that helped as well. I'm curious to hear if you agree. What is something you learned from these other societal norms that made you who you are today? Yeah, man, that's a really good question. I'm going to cheers to that. So, one of the things that I truly learned from all of these other places, I would say, um, mostly Mexico less because Mexico is a pretty advanced country, but Ecuador, Guatemala, and Jamaica, those places, humility, man, being able to be humble and realizing that every single person out there has something to share, has a different perspective, has something to teach you. And that's something that, man, I I would say is one of the most important life lessons that I got in my and that I had that as a kid. Being able to talk to someone that literally comes from nothing, if you could see their net worth, they probably were worth like $100 total, and they were living in the dumps. But you know, they could share about what that experience was, and being able to hear that and see like what they thought about our lifestyle, who I was, and it really just brought me down to a level where no matter who it is that I'm talking to, I can listen and appreciate and realize that there it's such a different experience for every single person. But that's the on the high level. To be more specific, I would say um in Jamaica, it really just made me appreciate music, bonding over like singing and clapping and what they call devotion in Jamaica. People would just gather and like be clapping every 30, 45 minutes in the morning, singing religious songs. And that opportunity was powerful because you know what? At first I was like, whoa, what is happening? I remember the first time I was there, they asked me like, hey, pick some devotion songs. I'm like, I don't know. Like, can we listen to like Backstreet Boys or something? Blink 182? No, like they had the specific religious song, but being able to do that and seeing how everyone like bonded over that, like it was cool to just be free, be you. I mean, those are Chaminger ideas, but it was cool to see that. Um, and I know music is a big part of Caribbean culture. I mean, you have Bob Marley and all this stuff, but really, it's just music's powerful. Mexico, Ecuador, those places, it was really the unity of family, and I really respect that and appreciate that. Like that is really important to keep family close because at the end of the day, like they can be your biggest rock, but family has to be supportive. Like I feel like there is the thing where I realize that Mexicans, Ecuadorian, like Latin America in general, like value family too much, where they let everything slide. Family can do no wrong, and that's wrong. But I could keep going, but that's pretty much my takeaway. Wish we had talked more about that during our school days and moves. I feel like I stuck to my guns a lot and stayed true to my own convictions, even if I clashed with my peers. Though I certainly earned respect of many, I agree that our familial bonds were the key to our survival during those days. Yeah, it was really interesting. I mean, I know we had started talking about this probably just a few years ago. It was very recent, Alejandro, and I'm glad that we're now doing a real talk series. But so, if you guys haven't heard, every Tuesday we're releasing an episode called Real Talk where I talk with my brother about the real conversations. Like no bullshit, guys. Like this is what actually happens. This is what it takes to go on a self-improvement, self-reflection journey and analyzing your past, because I feel like too many people just are like, "Oh, well, the past is the past, whatever." No, like the past defines you to who you are to this moment. Doesn't define you forever, but it built you to this point. So anyway, like we just recently started talking about like how each one of us experienced this really crazy life where we lived in 6 different countries. We did all this weird stuff. And I remember I approached him and I was like, "Hey man, I know that pardon my language, I was fucked up. Like I had a lot of traumas and personal issues and self-esteem problems just because, you're literally think about it, every place you move, you are considered weird, strange. Like everyone people are interested in you, but they are interested in you because you are weird compared to them. They don't understand you. So as a kid, like that's a really hard thing. And I mean, again, I have no harsh feelings toward my parents or friend or cousins or anything like that. No one taught me to how to handle that. So it was just really cool to be able to now have that experience with my brother. What up, Alejandro and Felix? The fact that you guys had a German class together is insane, by the way. Thanks for the questions, man. Like, I appreciate the interaction, Hammer. Um, Good stuff. So, I think I'm going to tell two more stories and start winding down because this has been a good first stream for the happy hour. Every Friday, we're going to be doing this. Just kind of a way to share stories, share experiences, perspectives. But everyone who's commented and interacted, we appreciate you. We are really looking to just have people become part of a community. I think there's something to be said about being able to open up about these things. I don't know why. I really don't. And I know I felt the same way too, but there's like almost like this stigma of like opening up and being real, being honest, being authentic. And I want to change that. Even if it's just with my network and obviously like strangers are starting to see it in exposure. Like please continue to share it, guys. Like if this resonates with you, share it. Like that's all I ask because we've only been doing this for less than a week now. Actually, tomorrow is a week of launching, but I want this to be something that people realize like, hey man, you can change your life. You can change your perspective. You can grow. You can do this. And if I've done it, why can't you guys? You know, I'm not anything special. I'm a regular guy, but I just underwent the journey and took the risks that I needed to take. You can do it too. Um, so let's talk about stopping random people, capturing attention. And then there's going to be one more story after this. So I remember this is a story from the timeshare sales days. And there was, I mean, I know I mentioned it briefly, but if you just tuned in, you're basically having to stop random people that are walking by at like major events or like a beer festival or a home show or some kind of thing where people are going for a purpose but it's not to get a vacation or a timeshare. So how do you stop people? And I remember that I was always in charge of mentoring people. So one of the things that I told people was is you have to do something crazy that stands out, but you target people's need to be feel special. So what do I mean by that? So if someone is wearing a red ribbon on their head or in their hair, you mention something about a red ribbon because they know they put that red ribbon in their hair. And you mention it, they are going to turn around and they're going to pay attention. So, an example is again from that wedding show that I mentioned earlier in this live stream. I guess this lady was working at that event or something like that, but I didn't have enough sales. I wasn't satisfied where I was at, and I was still working. It was near the end. She might have been a vendor, who knows? And I saw that she was wearing a backpack, and I just yell, not too loud, but you could hear me definitely for in quite a distance around me. I'm like, if you have a backpack, you qualify for a vacation. She instantly turns around, looks and like, really? I'm like, yeah. And then you move your arm like this, you wave them over, and you're like, come here. And she came here. It's like a magnetic pull. It's crazy how easy it is to bring people over. You mention something unique or specific to them. I mean, how many people at a wedding festival thing show were carrying around backpacks? She knew she was being referenced. She turns around. She comes over. I talk to her about vacation. She likes to travel. I close her and I sell something. All within like 15 minutes, all because I said, hey, if you have a backpack, you qualify for a vacation. And that goes to show you that how easy it is to stop people and capture people's attention. And then going back to what I mentioned earlier, like how can you talk to anyone? You show genuine interest in them. Like, well, where are you from? What do you do? Why do you do it? Like, and you're not just asking that to go through the motions. You actually care. And like the reason why I care is because it's so interesting to know where people come from. You know, I'm like, are you from Ecuador? Are you from Jamaica? Are you from Sri Lanka? Are you from Ethiopia? And if so, why? Like, what's going on in Ethiopia? Like, I'm kind of interested. Like, how's Ethiopia doing with the coronavirus? Oh, people are dying left and right. Oh no! Like, what can we do to save that? Like, what's happening? Like, you know, et cetera, et cetera. You just keep going down that road. But if you don't care, well, people can tell. And final topic for today, just because I promised the viewers that I would talk about this story, and I'm sure I'm going to talk about it again, but it's a story about luxury apartments and networking. Networking is literally one of the most game-changing things that you can do in your life. And I think a lot of people struggle to know what people mean when they say networking. They're like, oh, like they have like this image in their head of what it is. Basically, it's just you're talking with people, you're befriending people for the purpose of having a connection or a reference that you can use down the road to help you in your professional life. Could be a friend, but that's still networking. If this friend works at Microsoft and you're interested in working at Microsoft, that's literally networking. So, a lot of people never understood why I would even want to live at luxury apartments in the past. And I always told them it's because of who lives there. So, what do I mean by that? They're expensive. So, you already weed out a lot of people that can't afford it. So, it naturally attracts people that have higher paying jobs, who are farther along in their career, who have more experience, who are older, have savings, whatever it is. But the point is, more experience, more wisdom, more insight. So then, what happens? There's like these events that the apartments organize, and it gives you an opportunity to actually network with these people. You're befriending them, but you're still, if you actually want to learn from them and you talk to them and you ask them questions and you see what's happening, you soon realize that living in these places is a cheat code because you become your surroundings. And there's going to be a podcast episode about that. So look forward to it, guys. But you literally become your surroundings. And I just know that I skipped probably like 10 years of life experience because I got to talk to people that were like 40, 50, 60 that have made it, that are in the process of making it, that are doctors, CEOs, CFOs, chief marketing officers, have done startups, have worked for Facebook, have worked for Amazon, have worked for Microsoft. And you get to pick their brain and you hear consistencies, like what are the same things that they say. You're literally like you're basically I learned more in 6 months of being at a lecture apartment than I did in 4 years of college. And it was a lot cheaper too, guys. So curious if there's any comments about that. If not, we're gonna be winding down here. Appreciate you guys hanging out. Every stream is gonna be different. Gonna be sharing different stories, but at the end of the day, looking forward to connecting with you guys and just sharing the truth that being self-aware and gaining self-esteem and going on a self-improvement journey to figure yourself out is the key to unlocking happiness, which leads to success. Chaminger out. See you guys.